Welcome to Everything Comes Together. My name is Srinag and I'm an architectural photographer based in Chennai, India. My guest today is visual artist and graphic designer Sean Disa. On Everything Comes Together, I'll be speaking with people in the broader photography, architecture, and design communities. Rather than only talking about their work, we will be talking about them, their personal journey, the challenges they overcame, and the most pivotal incidents in their lives that made them who they are today. So now, let's get to it. Every now and then, you come across someone who has creativity just emanating off of them. Sean is one such individual. He's a visual artist, graphic designer, and the creative head of Womama Design, in addition to building beautiful terrariums. Sean talks passionately about keeping creativity functioning at a high level, running Womama with his friend and business partner Anek Ahuja, and how important it is to have a no-ego club for artists.
So I grew up in this house where it was a mixed culture of my dad being a Mangalorean, mom being an Anglo-Indian. So I was called a Mango because I had both of them. Dad was in the Merchant Navy and he used to sail for like 6 months on, 6 months off. So I always enjoyed looking at his life and seeing all the places that he used to go to, and I wanted to go on those adventures too. And so happened that he happened to take me and mom and my sister, and we used to travel the world, I think till my 6th standard or something. I never wrote my final exams.
Okay.
So, I write my half yearlies, get good marks, and then get onto the ship, go sailing, go see all these beautiful places, and then realize that dad didn't really enjoy to the aspect that I thought he was. He was working, he was a radio officer, always pushing gadgets, fixing things and all that stuff. And I was this little kid who got to explore the ship. So as far as what my dad was doing, that was something that I wanted to do when I was growing up. And I think I started engineering my life in terms of thinking that I would finally become a sailor and join the Merchant Navy.
Yeah.
But it so happened that, I did science in 12th. I had maths, physics, chemistry, and computer science, which I didn't do too well in math, so I wasn't so kicked about that. I moved on to, planning to write my exams for the Merchant Navy. And then my mom said, there's a long way in between you joining the Merchant Navy and, just sitting on your ass at home. So why don't you just go do something about your life? And there's this really interesting course that I found out. My mom, in fact, told me about visual communication, which I had no clue about.
Okay.
And that's where we met also.
Yeah, of course. And when did she tell you about visual communication?
I think it was somewhere to the end of when my summer holidays had just begun, and I had no interest in doing anything but, because I knew the Merchant Navy exams were 8 months away or something. So I was planning to just relax and have a good time, and I think she didn't want me to be doing that. So, and she figured that I was good at things like illustration and stuff, so why not do something that is good? And I don't recall too many people, the parents at that time, telling them to go and join the visual communication course.
Not at
because
all.
Nobody
Not
had a clue of what it was.
So when you got introduced to Viscom, how did you react? Was this something that you were actively interested in, or was it something you thought?
I myself had no clue what it was about until I started diving a little bit into it and checking it out online. And I heard that other visual communication courses were about advertising and graphic design and anything that you want to pursue in terms of, it could be photography, filmmaking, but you would have to go through a set foundation and then, finalize what you want to specialize in.
Yeah.
So I had a vague idea, I would say, but not completely clued in as to what it was. I don't think my mom knew either. She just wanted to keep me busy.
Most people knew.
Yeah.
It was
all the way till the 3rd year, we never really knew what we were going to do.
This was 2002, right? So probably at that time was when people were really starting to find out what visual communication was all about. Yeah. So why don't you tell me about how it was in school? Because school is which sort of makes and breaks a lot of things.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
So, for me as well, I was told in school that I was a good artist. Which I realized I wasn't until I came to college, right? But that at least puts you on the right track.
Right.
Was that how it was in school?
I think a lot of us thought we were good artists until we met other good artists in college. No, but I think in school what happened was, so from my childhood, it's always been quite fascinating to see my granddad, who was a very big inspiration in my life. And
Okay.
he was a fantastic athlete who represented India in the first Asian Games. He
Oh, wow.
was a shunter in the Southern Railway, shovel coal, all that stuff. So this guy was also an artist, and he used to draw a lot with charcoal and these big fat pencils.
Yeah.
So looking at all that stuff would really inspire me. He used to do these massive pieces, a lot of biblical stuff, a lot of portraits of Christ and stuff, and they would look
Right.
fantastic. And I was so inspired by the way he would smudge things and like work the pencil and charcoal. So I so happened to get a small interest into those things, into drawing. And I think all of them collectively encouraged me, right from my mom, my dad, my grandparents, and everybody encouraged me around. I think encouragement was something that actually pushed me towards doing things like entering competitions where you feel shy. You often shy away from these things, right? But it let me believe that I could do it. So I don't think I was very good to begin with, but the constant encouragement makes you feel like you're going someplace.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it led up to the point of doing cool things in school that were slightly art related and having an interest in science projects and those things.
So, where did your granddad pick up all these things?
I have no clue,
Did
man.
you get a chance to talk to him about it?
I think I was too young to ask him those philosophical sort of questions about
Yeah.
where he picked up stuff from, but I think he just had a very keen interest in terms of creating stuff. Like he would find somebody else's long trousers at home and cut it up and make short pants for me, and that other person would come back looking for his pants. It's one of those things. He was very creative with the needle, or very creative with stitching, or with drawing, and just generally very creative.
Okay. And did you start drawing early? Did you pick things up along the way, or was it something that bloomed later on?
I think I was doing traditional drawing, like coloring, drawing, inking, and coloring and stuff. But
Yeah.
then I later found out there was Photoshop 3.0 at some point when my dad bought me.
3.0.
Yeah, so it was really, some old stuff, right? And I figured that you could. I mean, MS Paint was there before that, but that
Yeah,
didn't give
of
me
course.
much. I could
Yeah.
draw, but it felt like something was missing.
Yeah, drawing with a ball mouse is
Right,
not easy.
right. And then Photoshop 3 happened. I got into a little bit of that, understanding how you can take photographs and manipulate them and all that stuff. And then finally, Dad picked up Intio's tablet a long time after that, which I started playing with it a little
Right.
bit. But this was more towards the 12th and stuff like that.
Okay. So after the 12th, you obviously move on to visual communication,
Yep.
which of course is where we met, right?
Yep.
So what was your takeaway? What was your experience? Did you enjoy your time there?
I would say for the most part of it that I listened in class, I would have grasped something
Yeah.
that I had to further go outside of the class and grasp more of
yeah.
it because it wasn't enough. I really enjoyed meeting a wide bunch of people with like different character traits, and it's mostly that personality that would have molded me to become a different person that I was from school.
Yeah.
Because we were so in this bubble in school, and once we got out of that and met these people,
Yeah.
and they all had this very different take on life, and some of them are pretty aggressive about their attitudes and about their belief systems.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of shook my belief system a little bit in terms of like I maybe been a little bit protected, from school, and then having to meet so many people who are totally different,
Yeah.
and you haven't studied 12 years with them, but you just met them.
Yeah.
I think all those things, stirred up something in me to kind of go after other things apart from my own old beliefs that,
Yeah.
maybe were there in my family and stuff like that. So it expanded my mind to say meeting people.
Yeah, and that sort of even brings a new stage in your maturity
man.
as a person,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Because you as a creative person is just one aspect of it, and then
Exactly.
you meet other people and you deal with different people's attitudes. It
Exactly.
sort of moves you along
Like
as well.
how does the outside world mold someone's personality, right? I think
Yeah.
college was that for me. I can clearly say that my friends in college have defined my personality, creative personality going forward.
Yeah, and that was also where you really started to delve into freehand illustration and
Yep.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
Where did that take you?
So the beginning of college always felt like, okay, I'm in college, I'm going to get a job after this. This is like a stepping stone to all of that. So what am I going to do? That curiosity and hunger of like, I've always been this person who needs to be on time for things. So I like to start early with things. So this became a little bit of an itch as to what I was going to do. And then I fell back on things that I was good at. I looked at my portfolio of what I presented. They were mostly, pencil drawings and sketches and stuff like that. So I said, since I've been doing this and I don't see anything else that I can think of right now, let me start doing illustration.
Yeah.
So I started with doing stuff like freelance illustration, where I was doing work for small clients, doing work for some film related stuff. And some of it would get rejected, some of it would get on my nerves because the client had so much of feedback. So I got a taste of all of that. I got a taste of like getting paid. So it was gratifying, and it was also like, scary at the same time, because I didn't believe I could be my own business. But
and you're doing this on the side?
I was doing this on the side here and there just to make some money, because my folks are very clear about one thing: you go make your own money. We're not going to give you shit.
Nice.
We'll give you stuff to survive, but we want you to understand that the real world, you need to make your own way in terms of your career. So that I think stirred up the whole fact that I had to, maybe do things that I enjoyed doing and see how I could make it a business. I think illustration started like that. I printed some business cards. I got work through that, but that wasn't it for me. I mean, it was the beginning of something, definitely.
But that's a good way to start. I mean, you don't have the pressure of having to earn a living because your parents are still supporting you while you're in college.
Right. But there's a lot of anxiety also, because somebody else is thinking about what the work you're going to give them. And
true.
Yeah.
But your primary focus is on just bettering yourself as well at that point, right?
Yeah.
And in college, did you go and intern under anyone at any point?
In college, I had met this guy Arjun Janakram, who happens to be a friend of mine now. He would come in to judge a cultural event, and he started talking about comics. And the next thing he knew, I was talking to him about comics, and he called me over for an internship to be an illustrator in his firm. And I think I was going there almost every day for about 8 months, 6 to 8 months. And I learned a lot at the agency. It was called Matter Most Urgent, MMU Communications. And did quite a bit of interesting work over there, and I got a bit of a foundation over there.
And there you did mostly illustration or design?
Mostly illustration. I got to dabble with Photoshop and Illustrator a little bit more. Although I wasn't very good at it. I had started to practice stuff by about then.
Okay. And at this point as well, I think you started to do a bit more work in advertising as well, right?
Oh yeah, I think around that time, the same time of this Matter Most Urgent MMU Communications internship, I started doing work for like brands like the Taj, Roshan Lal's. Like they weren't giving me the big work. They were giving me tidbits because I wasn't capable of handling a client end to end.
Yeah, those are pretty big clients.
So I mean, I was working on that, and I think I moved on to my next internship the next year to JWT, where I started to do some real work. I felt like it was getting out. I did some work for Ford Endeavor, some small bits of work. Again, it wasn't entrusted fully, but I got to work on stuff over there. And that felt like a little larger agency setup, and I got an understanding of how, the different wheels are in motion within an agency, at least.
Yeah. And what was it like being, I assume MMU was a smaller firm, right?
It was a small outfit.
JWT is huge.
Yeah.
So what was it like being a smaller fish in a much bigger pond in JWT? Was your
JWT, I was an intern, okay? So,
right, of course.
Bottom of the pile kind of thing. No, but people were good. People were very encouraging. I mean, my creative director at that point, Juno Simon, he told me this shit is not for me.
Okay.
This stuff is not for you, dude. You better come back with some cool work, or I'm not taking you into the agency.
Wow.
So it was like that kind of thing. Like, damn, this is my life. Juno's put a big chip on my head now to go and do something.
Right.
And at the same time, there were other people like this other guy, Ratish Subramaniam, who was also an art director, creative director in Bangalore. And, he was very encouraging. There were a lot of people around me who were encouraging. So I think encouragement is like a massive thing in the creative industry. If people keep shooting down your ideas, making you feel really small, it's very hard for you to come up and explain yourself, right?
It motivates you.
If people encourage you and choose the right kind of words to use around you in terms of like, pushing you forward to come up with a great idea, I think that's a great thing to do.
Yeah. And that would also push you forward when you're being, you get negative feedback.
Exactly.
It drives you forward.
It works either way. So if it's a client working with you, you're going to expect them to give you words of encouragement and in order to problem solve.
Yeah.
Rather than this work looks pretty bad, man. I don't like it.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
like
yeah.
it means it's over there, right? As
Correct.
opposed to something more progressive in terms of like trying to see if there's going to be a positive outcome because of my positive relationship with you, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And okay, so what did you do after college? Once we graduated from visual communications, where did you head off?
So after Viscom, I was pretty clueless as to what I was going to do because the second internship was Juno telling me, dude,
You're not made for this.
You're not made for advertising. So I was actually thinking that advertising is not my cup of tea, and I kind of thought that I wanted to do something else, but I never
Yeah.
knew what that was. I knew it had to be something with illustration and design, but I didn't know if I was good enough for it.
Yeah.
And it was just me and Anek Ahuja, this other friend of mine who's my business partner right now.
Yeah.
Both of us were hanging out a lot, and I was evading interviews. I was dressing up for interviews from home, going to Anek's house, and we were chilling. And
You would not have been going for the
yeah, we were grabbing beers by the coast. We were doing all that sort of stuff. So I'd pick him up on the bike, take him, we'd go to go grab a beer, go sit by the East Coast. We'd be talking these big plans, and I don't think I took up most of the interviews because I didn't feel like it was for me. I had some advertising interviews with agencies, but I was a bad guy who didn't turn up for the interviews. I feel really shitty about that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so eventually, Anek got a job with Design Garage, and I was left like, I don't have anybody to hang out with, nobody to go to the coast with, all that stuff.
Right.
And I started seriously thinking about what to do when this other friend of mine from college, this guy called Abhishek Jayaprakash, is also a fantastic designer.
Yeah.
He taught me a lot of stuff as well in design. He told me, dude, you better come and join this company that you'll be perfectly fitted for. The company is called Graph, and where he was working. Graph dealt with design and publishing. And it was run by these two people, Bharat Ramaratham and Monica Gurde. They were both photographers. Bharat was a architectural photographer,
Yeah.
you must know, and
Yeah.
Monica was a fashion photographer. So I joined them, and they were very happy to take me in with all my mind that wasn't made up, and still they nurtured me and they got me to where I am right now.
So that sort of put you on the track
Of course, man.
moving
I think
forward.
I was very happy when I finally realized that this is my space.
Yeah.
I just needed to see it. It wasn't pure advertising; it was more of design.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with the architecture and stuff, it is serious design. It's not like some let's do design for the heck of it. It's like
Very much.
it's aesthetic stuff. You have to please an architect when you're doing it. So
Yeah.
I think it was a great foot to get off on to start with.
And you would have made a lot of contacts as well.
Oh yeah. Worked
Yeah.
with some good clients also. Bharat had some really good clients. Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you do after after Graph? When you left Graph, you've been there for some time.
Yeah, I
you
was
built
there.
your contacts, and you're at least now on the right path, right?
I wouldn't say I built my contacts because a lot of the clients were very far away. So it
Sure.
was mostly the understanding of how to deal with clients. I think I got a little bit of experience in terms of an all-round thing as being an art director. Like how to work with the photographer, how to work on design, all that stuff. And I think the feeling was a little bit confident, but at that point I did want to study. So again, Anek Ahuja and I had planned to study in Australia, this University of Monash in design course. We applied to quite a few, and we realized they were very expensive, and it so happened that we didn't have enough money to meet Monash. And at that point, we thought, do we want to be, studying, or do we want to start building an empire right away?
I love the empire.
That was another itch, right? It was
Yeah.
always there. That entrepreneurial mindset was always there, I guess. And it so happened that I was still in talks with my boss about stuff about the education. And at that point, Anek and I had gone out for a ride someplace, and we spoke about starting a company. And we'd had this burger, and the burger was called a Wo Mama. Okay, this was a place
So that's where it comes
place
from.
that closed down a long time ago called Galloping Gooseberries. They had a
in
burger
Seattle.
called the Wo Mama. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And the Wo Mama was the burger with everything in it. So we
Okay.
were like a little bit excited about that whole fact. Sipping our beer by the East Coast, no cops around, nothing. And I just draw the logo. I draw 4 circles in the sand, and I raise bits and pieces, and it becomes a Wo Mama logo.
Okay.
Right. And from there, we were just so excited that I go back and I design the logo, and we've quit our jobs and everything, and we start up office with a small space on College Road, which is on Anek's Terrace. It's like
Okay.
a kind of an attic kind of space, cute, cozy office. And both of us started as just independent designers under one label. So that was WoMama in the beginning.
Okay. And obviously things changed from there. You started with just the two of you.
Just the two of us, yeah. And then slowly after a year, we hired one person. And during that time, it was cool, man. There was no responsibility. There were no kids, no wives, nothing. So we were like two guys, make some money and just disappear and go to Goa, go places lavishly, like spend all that money. Like two kids from school.
Yeah.
You know, one of those things. And there was no responsibility, I would say, in the beginning. And then slowly it caught on that, why are we running this? This other friend of ours, Nishant, who also happened to be part of the initial company as a writer. So Nishant was like, Nishant from college.
Yeah, of course.
So Nishant was like, dude, why are you guys, doing the separate thing where you're doing print design, he's doing web design, and you're making your own money? Why don't you just do it under one banner, under one bank account? So then we started to get a little bit more serious about the fact that it's turning into a company and we have to start thinking about stuff.
Rather than two guys just working together, make it a partnership.
Exactly. I do a branding job, I've made a chunk. He's done a web job, he's made a chunk. Hey, let's go party. It's one of those things. I got more money than you.
So at this point, was the WoMama brand already in place?
The WoMama brand was in place, yeah.
Okay. And how did you come up with, I know it came from the name of the burger, right? So at that point, you started building your brand, started working on independently.
Right. So,
and then now, of course, the roles have shifted between you and Anek. Right. So what brought on that shift? The fact that you had to formalize a partnership almost?
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, to start just go through the WoMama thing, it was definitely inspired by the burger, but the whole aspect of the fact that we wanted clients that are not just from here, clients to understand this whole attitude of WoMama being anything that is wow and anything of wonder. So that was the kind of attitude we went with. And in the beginning, both Anek and I were both graphic designers. So, as I said, he would do web, I would do print, and it was just that design equation that was happening. But I think one part we started losing out on was the fact that we had to become good business development people and good bookkeepers and all that sort of stuff, right? So slowly over the years, Anek had to kind of ditch his whole design, space and move into that space because I wasn't the one to do it. And he definitely had a better business mind for stuff. And he's definitely the very cool person between the two of us. Like I would probably flare up and get irritated about stuff in terms of feedback. These are the earlier years. I think I've learned to deal with that stuff now a lot better. So him with his design experience, becoming that business head kind of person, also helped a lot because he's someone who could have met someone and spoken about design, and not just from some vague idea, but he had actual experience in design. Yeah. So it was good in that aspect. People wanted to speak with us.
So he's a designer who has that business mindset as well.
So he could defend me.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's also very important. I think we talked about this earlier about plugging the weaknesses of the other person.
Exactly.
Right? So you have your shortcomings, he has his shortcomings, and then you guys.
So we're good cop and bad cop. That's how we have to play it, right? Play to our strengths. As I said, I'm the one who used to probably get very attached to the work in the early years. And he would have a nice way of pacifying and putting it across to the client. And I over time I've learned from that. I've not been that stagnant person who's like egotistically stuck to the graphic design. It's not art. It's graphic design. The end purpose is to solve a problem. So over the years it kind of got to a point where I've gotten over that whole thing where it's my work and this is the way for it to be done and stuff. No, it's to serve an end purpose, and it's not art. So I've separated art from design, and I've learned a lot of that because of him.
Okay. So what are the current roles between the two of you?
Okay, so I am the creative head of the agency.
Okay.
In which I see to all stuff, right from copy to design, content, everything. But mostly on the design front of things. Everything from shoots, all that stuff is taken care by me. Anek mostly handles all the business coming in. He deals with clients on a bigger front of things while I deal with them creatively. He keeps the books in place, which is a very big thing.
Very big.
And he has to make sure that all these 25 people out here, their salaries are met.
So now you're up to 25.
Yeah, up to 25 people.
So that's a pretty big team to have to manage, right?
In the current time, yes.
Yeah, I mean, especially the current time, but how, and 25 creative people in one space, I mean, the energy is
22 creative people.
Okay.
23.
22, 23 creative people in one single space where all of you are bouncing off each other, right?
Yeah.
So how do you keep the energy up? I mean, it must be an interesting challenge to have to
Right.
make sure people are functioning at that optimum level of creativity and efficiency, right?
Right.
So how do you make that work?
That's an interesting one. So it's a game of monkey see, monkey do kind of thing.
Right.
That's kind of a culture we've been nurturing over here. So I think throughout from the big inception of Womama, we've had other stuff apart from just the more on the craft end of things, apart from just doing design or creating stuff on the computer. It's been that stuff that you do with your hands, like from screen printing to painting something or to doing stop motion. Just playing with the other mediums that don't confine you to the computer. That has become a practice. So I think also I'm this kind of very restless person who doesn't want to sit quietly, is always doing something. And I think over a period of time, me doing those things have inspired other people, and other people have started to do those things. So the culture is picked up in such a way where it's not me who is the spirit of this restlessness in Womama anymore.
Definitely.
It's everybody. So the motto of the company is live restless, die rested. So if you live a very restless life and achieve many things, can you die a very happy man? One of those things.
Yeah.
So I think everybody is taken to even like proactively coming up, like the art directors around here, all of them have taken up to, basically do sessions within the company which teach people a skill set that they have. So we have these Wednesday sessions, we have these Friday sessions where they may be paper mache, painting, clay modeling, all that stuff happens. So I think that keeps the energy up a lot.
Work with your hands as
Work
well.
with your hands because it kind of stimulates your mind. And it doesn't make you feel, creatively anxious about that you have not achieved something in the day.
Yeah.
Even if you've done a piece of design that is a little bit dull and a little bit required to be that way, you have other outlets.
Yeah.
That saved me from the whole fact of being too attached to my work as well.
Yeah, and it's also nice to bring in people to talk about stuff that
Exactly.
infuses something
Exactly,
new.
and you get to know people better within the agency. So I think the agency has
So
become...
this is within the organization, or you bring people in?
No,
from
this is
outside?
within the organization as well as we bring in other people also.
Oh, nice.
But
Okay.
specifically 2 people in the organization, so the family gets to know each other a lot better and we
Right.
start, breaking those walls and utilizing each other's skill sets better.
Yeah, and so right now, when within the organization, within these 25 people who are here, obviously over these years, you also must have enabled a lot of the other people within the company to take their own responsibilities, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. My creative director Ashwin Mohan, he's a shining example of that. He came in when maybe about he's been here for 7 years. Yeah, he's been here for quite a while. So he came in with this very thing of I want to do good design. I identified you guys as people who do good design, and I think he stuck by those guns of being hungry for work. And right now he's creative director only for that reason, that he's been so hungry and he does fantabulous work based on that hunger. And I think giving him responsibilities also and like freely letting him take charge of stuff has made him a very confident person in terms of what he does, and it shows in his work. And he's able to defend that work only because he's confident about it. And I think that's all been nurtured through the way we deal with people over here. We don't have them on a tight leash. We want them to roam freely and
Want them unleashed.
Yeah, you want them unleashed because and you want them to play more than actually like sit and work. Well, the current time I can't account for, but generally within this ecosystem when it's buzzing with people, we want them to have more of a fun playtime. So when they sit down and work, it's a little bit more exciting for them to bring their experiences to the table.
Yeah. So let's just change tracks just a little bit. So you talk about the team and then how you guys actually started up.
Yeah.
How did you come across the breaks that pushed you, really propelled you guys forward? Because I think everyone who starts a business is waiting for that break and working towards getting a big break that takes them to the next level, right? So how did that happen?
It's very hard a question. There's lots of, almost every client feels like a break. But to account for the earlier years, I would think that, we started out as this company that was just we had a really cool, funky website at that time, which was a little bit of a daring thing in Flash we did. And
You still have a pretty funky website.
yeah, but that time it was overly
It was-
funky. I mean, I wouldn't go to that agency, but people were excited by the fact that there are these dudes out there who are different and they're not projecting themselves in a traditional way.
Yeah.
And a smaller agency means more attention to detail
Yeah.
by the main people. So I think that's the kind of identity we built up in the beginning where, we met people in bars, we spoke to them freely, gave them a good vibe. And I think a lot of our work picked up organically from meeting people, and we did a lot of work for design festivals. I mean, sorry, not design festivals, for music festivals, for bars, and like all those small projects in the beginning kind of went around by word of mouth that these guys are really good designers and easy to work with, and they get a good output. And then we did some work for Nully and Ashok Leyland, which I think were very big milestones for us because.
Well established.
Yeah, Ashok Leyland, we did this coffee table book, which is 250 pages. And I worked with Mr. Mutaya on it also, S. Mutaya.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, that was a great experience. Nully's website was a good experience because then we got to do a bigger brand, local bigger brand. So, I think all those things were stepping stones to getting bigger work eventually.
Yeah. See, I've known you now for what now? 2002, right? So it's like 18 years,
Yeah.
right? So and since the beginning, I've obviously been seeing the kind of work that you guys have been doing. And like you said, that initially you'd met a lot of people through these music festivals and performances, and I think you did even Bay
146.
Bay 146. So that's one type of a market.
Right.
And then you get a very traditional company like Nully.
Right.
Very, very
Expectations are different,
yeah, totally. And even like Ashok Leyland is such a well-established old brand.
Yeah.
I think that is where that diversity in the kind of work that you guys were putting out, that was quite interesting for me to see from the outside. And that must have also made a variety of people think that, okay, these guys can deliver whatever kind of work that we need.
So that's something we were going after, Srinag, in the beginning.
Yeah.
So we wanted our portfolio to have this very young attitude that I can do all this cool work for your music festival, for your bar, for any cool space, and then totally go into this aspect of it can be very mature at the same time. It can do a coffee table book for an old brand like Ashok Leyland.
Sure.
So we definitely still have that diversity right now because it's a very subjective thing, right? You can get anybody and make anybody's work interesting. It's just a question of what do you do for that person. So that's how it's become. A lot of people join our company thinking that they're all going to do just this cool bar work and stuff like that. It's not always like that.
Yeah.
A lot of the bar work is also to give them the chance to do something crazy. Without any locks on the doors, just do what you want, and it can move into a great concept.
Yeah.
But there's certain boundaries that you will hit while working within well-established brand that you have to adhere to. So
yeah, and I think one thing that I've again seen. I mean, Anek isn't here to talk on his behalf. But what's your take? Suppose for anyone who is starting off right now and getting out of college, right? You guys have made it work as a partnership. Right? So would you advocate for everyone to partner up, or do you think that works with...
Hell yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's just me who would be incapable of doing it all by myself, but I can be very honest that I would probably survive as a freelancer, but not as... I couldn't be this one guy running this company, that's for sure. There's no possible way in hell that I could have done it without the second person. And second person being Anek in particular, right? Because of our kind of equation that we've got going on, there's never been any doubt floating around that, am I not sure about this person? Even at this time, right? It's been so relaxed because you have complete faith in the other person's abilities. And there's always two of us to help push each other to, if the other person is slightly going off track, can you push him towards... It's always been that synergy happening.
You keep each other in check.
Exactly. The synergy is very important because you can get burnt out after a few years of this business. It's very, very toxic, I would say. It's not glamorous as it seems. It's quite a rough thing. And having your mind in creative while somebody's mind is in business is a fantastic thing. And I think it's a perfect equation for any young person who's starting a brand. In fact, one of our directors, Rajiv, had left to go to Bangalore, and he's also planning to start his own agency.
Okay.
And I was in fact telling him the same thing. Dude, you got to find somebody who can run with you and is willing to do the path that you don't want to do, because how else are you going to enjoy your life with a creative person?
Yeah.
You stay on the creative side.
And I think we talked about this a little bit earlier on, where one person plugs the other one's weaknesses.
Yeah.
So, and then you're a more cohesive unit.
Like for example, there's not always that I can be attending to many things. Sometimes I may not be available. And Anek steps in over there and he even writes things like scripts, and both of us work together on brand strategy and stuff like that. So he comes in a big way in design still, but it's not on an executional level so much. It's more on ideation and concept level.
Yeah.
Which is very, very important to me. I need that. I need him.
You need to bounce it off.
I need the same Anek I met many years ago for these things.
Yeah,
so it's important for me. Yeah.
And how does he take the shift?
Sometimes he'll tell me it's your job, just to put me in the shit, right? No, but he's good, man. As in, like as I said, you need to have some kind of equation with somebody to run it. Otherwise, you feel very lonely.
Yeah.
I think there are times when I have to make big decisions, and Anek is probably in the US. I'm like, so much nicer when there's two around for certain things. Yeah. Because it's just bouncing it off somebody who's of your caliber. It's just easy.
Yeah. We've talked about the business, we've talked about the team, managing people, keeping everyone's creative energy up. How do you keep your creative energy up? So what do you need to do? What's your little trick?
Live restless, die rested. Same thing.
Exactly. How do you live that?
So I think restlessness is something that's been handed down for me from I think grandfather, mother. Even my father is restless. So my mom is married a restless man, right? Obviously. So that's the DNA. And I think that will eventually be my demise, also being extra restless when I'm too old. But coming back to, how I use that, for me, it's all about, I think it's escaping something to do something more fun and then come back to that thing. That's how it's been with graphic design. It's never been a quiet moment in the office where I'm at 8 hours probably doing it. Maybe now it's slightly different from how it was, but it's always been a question of playing and gratifying myself with something that I enjoy doing, and then coming back to something that's a challenge and then overcoming that challenge. So this other thing with, you might have seen the terrariums all around the office.
All over the place,
it's probably in the frame. So the terrariums also started out as a very, small thing where I was dabbling with picking up plants from the side of the pavement and throwing them into little test tubes just to see how they would grow over time.
But where?
I don't know.
Okay, wait. You pick up plants from the pavement. Have you done that before?
No, I used to.
So why did you? What made you even get a test tube and put a plant in it?
I don't know, man. Maybe I was just walking with my head down, looking at the ground, but I saw these plants, right?
Right.
And I just wanted to see how they would grow in like small spaces. So like alcohol bottles were like a lot, right? Like,
Yeah.
So I filled them a little bit of mud. And this other artist friend of mine called Joyston, he comes and mentions to me, dude, do you know that these things that you're making are actually called terrariums? And he called them terraniums at that point, and they're on this Pinterest site.
Right.
So when I opened Pinterest, and opened the gates up, the garden opened up to me, and I think then I started looking into how could I sustain something like that. So there were failed experiments, there were positive experiments, and some lasted for a very long time, for 3 or 4 years, and some of them are still going on for a really long time. But that all happened because I kind of got into I found out what it was and found out what some of these people were doing, and got into the research of what are my different layers, why is there certain layers of carbon to keep the things fresh. So all these things of science came into the stuff, and now it's become a release system for me during work to probably just go bash a terrarium out and make one in bits and pieces through the day. So I have this other little thing to do. If the terrarium is done, I'm probably trying to do something else where I'm cutting out stuff and making a collage, or open up an old art file in between, or do 2 logos at the same time just to keep my restlessness running.
Okay.
Because you really, your brain starts sparking, the whole endorphin rush gets pushed when you're trying to do too much at the same time, and you're like, this jack of many trades. Sorry, what was it?
Jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades, master of none. I totally believe in being the jack of all trades, because even in our business in today's date, you have to do more than just sit and do graphic design. You have to be an art director at a shoot. You have to place a product. You have to, illustrate. You have to do everything, man. Right from running to the print shop, which wasn't a graphic designer's job back in the day.
Sure.
So I guess running after many rabbits is very good in that light. Yeah.
No, I like the rabbits. But also that I can see that restlessness, and
Right.
obviously walking around your office there are terrariums everywhere. I think in the back of shot there is what?
Yeah.
4 there, 4
Quite a few
more
pieces.
over here.
Yeah.
And that also points to a great interest in nature, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And that seems to be also what your Instagram is full of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, again, inspiration for design in the very beginning has been like, everything that you do is always found in nature. There's nothing that you can create that hasn't already been created. Right from, if you cut a tree ring in half, you see the layers of rings and there's concentric circles, and it's all covered in graphic design. Possibly everything that we see and imagine is covered in design as well, right? So for me, apart from it just being a very good inspiration for design, it's just been a place of solitude to be alone in nature, or just like in a quiet space where there's nobody around, where there's a little kick of a bird, or small sounds like that, to take a nice long trek into some place wet and hilly, and get into a fog and just feel all those forces is something very important to me. It's kind of more a spiritual feeling that I need to do it every now and then for a recharge. I need to go on these moss runs where I pick up moss and small plants which I come back and deposit it. So all these things are actually from the forest, most of the stuff.
Okay.
I don't like buying plants and putting them in. So I just have this great sense of belonging when I'm like climbing a tree, or sitting under a waterfall and doing something very, very savage, to put it.
Yeah.
That is expected of us, but we've built ourselves these buildings and put ourselves in these chairs.
So I guess that's also where the name comes from.
Yeah, totally.
Terrariums.
Savage terrariums, where things are not from urban nature, but from the forest itself.
Interesting, because the way I see it as well for you is that you spend all your time being creative in something or the other, and then you get your solitude and your recharge from nature where you're alone.
Right.
But then you bring the solitude and the nature and everything that you pick up from there, the plants, and then you bring it back to being creative with the terrariums.
It's like, speaking of, it's like Fortress of Solitude, Superman's, where he collects things, Superman collects things and brings it to one place. It feels like that. No, so for me, I figured out that I like doing certain things, like I like nature, I like design, and what has become that catalyst in between the two that makes everything happen is my motorcycle. I have a big love for bikes. So I have a biking group, and we all head out into the hills and stuff, where I take a little bit of detour and do all this stuff all by myself sometimes. So I really figure that my true love for things is like manifesting in my work, right from clients wanting me to build them a massive terrarium, or like I just came back a couple of days. I came back from an art direction shoot in which I had done something for a photographer which involved mimicking nature on a studio scale. And even the motorcycle stuff. You built terrariums for other people as well? Well, I built terrariums for clients who asked for it, but this shoot that I went for, it was to totally ape nature in a studio setting.
Okay.
I can't talk too much more about it.
No, that's fine. I'll wait for it to come out.
I have to be out soon. But that was a great experience, and also, so this whole love for motorcycles has been a very big thing for me in my life, and started off from when I was a kid. My uncle's riding ESDs, all that stuff, and it so happens that I got into the whole craze of it and biking to the hills, and packing all your stuff and riding through the hills alone. That nice sense of adventure, bringing back the moss, putting it in the terrarium. So it all became part of a bigger thing for me, and. Even this interest for bikes and creating art for bikes has caught the attention of Royal Enfield, where Siddharth Lal from Royal Enfield got in touch with me and asked me, can you do something for us, and to meet up with people from Royal Enfield. So a relationship built from there as well, because I'd done an installation with a Royal Enfield in Nabha.
Okay.
So it was called a bullet on a wall. It was a whole bullet cut.
Cross section.
Yeah, it was complete Enfield cut, sliced. Which was a very good experience again. So everything that I love has been manifesting in my work in some way, and that's been keeping me happy, I guess.
I can see that. And with all this restlessness, you must have to keep yourself in good shape to be able to climb up
Hell yeah.
and then keep doing this, right? I think that's So why did you talk about that? Because a lot of people overlook the physical side.
Yeah. So Srinath, I believe in one very important thing, that every human being needs to move, right?
Yeah.
Right from the time you're a child, and you like I have kids, so I see them. Basically, they don't run around in the evening. They're very cranky towards bedtime,
Yeah.
and I have the same crankiness about me, right?
Okay.
If I don't run, if I don't climb a tree, if I don't work out, there's nothing being stimulated here for me. It's just something built up that I can't explain. There's no. I need that hard spent time to a hard work put in for that endorphin rush. It can't be easily given to me.
Yeah.
Which is why now I'm cutting off sugar and stuff like that, because I want it to be hard work to reach that endorphin rush. Chocolate cake is easy endorphin rush,
Yeah.
right, immediately. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to reboot my system in terms of that, because it really works for me.
Yeah.
And I can see that the days that I spend time doing my monkey stuff or exercise and all that stuff, it so happens that the following week is just a blessed week in terms of work. So I thoroughly believe in it. I totally put it out there for everybody that it's an important thing in a person's life, especially if they're doing a sedentary job like sitting at a chair and
Yeah.
working.
Yeah, get physical and
Yeah.
that wakes your brain
It
up.
wakes your brain up, yeah.
Yeah. One more thing that I noticed every time I talk to you is the importance you give to just talking with other people, with other creative people, and building those relationships.
Right.
And also collaborating, right? Every collaboration is not an assignment, not a project, right?
Yeah.
But you actively try to talk to creative people and build those relationships, and then bounce off each other.
Correct.
Why don't you just talk a little bit about that, because I feel that that's something that I as well talk about and don't end up doing. It's only now that I'm doing these interviews that I end up talking to other creative people in person.
So, creative people in the city, I think I know a lot of them, but on different accounts, where I think everyone wants to meet each other, but they don't end up meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. But I so happen to enjoy spending more time hanging out with actual creative people who are always got something interesting to talk about or ideas to bounce off, and that becomes a more important engagement for me, as opposed to just sitting around having drinks and talking about what you did in school. So it's always been a way forward for me and Wo Mama, and in terms of how can I do cool stuff by collaborating with cool people who all of us share the same ideologies.
Yeah.
So most of my time is spent hanging out with lots of art friends like Madhavan Palnisamy, Radha Ratti, Joyston Vaz, a lot of these other people that I hang out with, Kunal Daswani. We all get together just to have a good time, but there's something at the back of your head that everybody enjoys this particular thing, and which is why we're hanging out together.
Yeah.
Even if we're sharing a drink.
Yeah.
There's always this thing that we want to do things together, we want to collaborate together, and I think that's a very good thing with the community. That's what keeps people close. People have built up too many walls around us in Chennai itself, where
Absolutely.
there shouldn't be any degrees separating us. Like, I have no problem talking to someone who's just fresh out of the bucket with just out of college, talking about his visual communication stuff. But there should be this no ego involved in this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm proposing a no ego club.
Yeah.
And that's what
Sounds
I
like
tell.
a fun thing to be a part of.
Yeah, the no ego club, right?
Yeah,
Where everyone acknowledges the fact that we're all on the same plane and just come together to discuss freely about your stuff. So I think that's missing in Chennai, and maybe we should do it. Maybe we can do it through all these interviews.
I think that's
Just
a good
pass
thing.
the no ego club.
Yeah. I mean,
I'll design something.
I get introduced to someone through you. Someone else introduces me to more people. Everyone's network
Yeah.
grows. But I think it's the network of people who are willing to share.
Exactly.
The point of doing these interviews is for you to lay yourself out.
Yeah.
And everyone, someone who watches it, gains inspiration from some part of this conversation.
Right.
And I think this is, I guess, a good start to the No Ego Club
Yeah.
from my end.
Yeah.
You guys already have a bit of a starting person, right?
Yeah.
Let's just talk about one last thing. I think
Yeah.
this has been really productive, I would say. The one last thing is, how much do you feel, like all the work that you have put in to build the brand, you
Right.
and Anek and the whole team, and also to build yourself and your own personal creative projects, right? How much of that would you attribute to being in the right place at the right time and putting yourself there and luck, and how much of that would be just pure dogged hard work?
I would believe most part of it is hard work.
Okay.
Right? You really, do in the early years, I would say we worked a lot to just get great work into our portfolio. Nothing would come free. So it was putting hard work and soul into something that wasn't paying you jack shit, right? Just to get that work in your portfolio. And people knew that they would exploit it, right? And they continue to do it even till today, but we don't give into those things anymore because we don't need it. But that was a very important thing. Hard work. Also being in the right place at the right time, I would agree, because I mean, Anik and me would be like having a drink in the bar, probably like quite a few rums down or something like that. We'll meet somebody and we'll have this very, informal conversation. And shit would just fly, man. I mean, like we just get talking about each other's what we do, and eventually that somebody will have a business and want to do something really crazy and something different, and says, I like your personalities because you guys are loose and you're like able to talk about this stuff. And that click is very important, because you don't want to be extra formal about somebody. You want to be totally honest with sometimes.
Yeah.
If you've already broken that one wall, it's so much easier. So I think Anik and I found that being at the right place in the right time was usually in a bar.
Yeah.
Because you'd have owners of businesses over there.
Right.
And if you were just to rub shoulders at the right time, sometimes things click. And all they need to know is that somebody else comes in and says, hey, have you met Sean? Man, he runs this kick-ass agency called Bomama Design. And the next thing you know, that's happened. And the same thing happened with Sid Lal from Royal Enfield.
Yeah.
Like Kunal Daswani is a photographer. They were talking about me at a bar, and Sid heard about it, and he heard about he's also seen the bullet on the wall thing.
Yeah.
So immediately it clicked, and that's how he got in touch with me. So it's just about also having these good friends also,
Yeah. No, I mean,
in the right places at the right time.
see, someone would see it on the outside and then say that they just happened to be at a bar and then they ended up meeting someone and that provided them an outlet
Right.
into a whole lot of
Right.
other work. But if you guys are consciously looking at the fact that you do go to certain places where you end up having conversations
Yeah.
with people, that's putting yourself in the right place at the right time. It's not purely coincidental.
I should keep doing it because I've stopped doing that. Anik does it a lot though.
Yeah, but I think you end up also.
I'm digging in the mud during that time.
Yeah, but that gets your creative juices flowing,
yeah.
right?
So he's a business guy, right? You gotta go do that.
Yes, that's business development there.
Yep.
Okay, great. I think this has been pretty good.
Good talking to you, man.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah, thank you so much, Sean.
To watch this and other episodes of the show, please subscribe to Srinag Pictures on YouTube, or you can listen to the audio podcast by subscribing to Everything Comes Together on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or on the podcast app of your choice. The music for the show was composed by Ashray Harishankar from Escapist Music. Post-production by Thiruvikraman Srinivasa Raghavan of SNS Arts Development Consultancy, and production assistance by Abdul Jilani. You can reach me on Instagram at Srinag or from my website www.srinagpictures.com. I'll be back in 2 weeks with another fascinating guests who work in photography, architecture or design. Until we meet again, it's goodbye from Mylapore.